When using Adobe Photoshop to create graphic designs for the web, I find that sometimes it can be difficult to know exactly where to begin. How do you start? A good place to start is with a strong graphic identity. If you have a business that you're working for, or a business of your own, it's good to have a strong graphic identity that speaks to the tone or the look and feel of the business. And that often involves designing a logo if one doesn't exist. So a good graphic identity is a place to start. And from that graphic identity come the look and feel in terms of colors, typography, textures, photography, elements that all fit together in concert to create a good website design. One thing that's really important to determine about site design is whether or not you're going to have a horizontal navigation system or a vertical navigation system, or a combination of the two. For example, the home page might have main navigation running across the top, but when you get into interior pages, you might have a sub-navigation system that runs along the left side. It's often the best practice to have navigation systems going across the top and the left side to ensure that the majority of the web viewers can view your navigation system. And this navigation system needs to be consistent across all pages. But how do you actually start to even begin to build a page like this? Let's take a look. If I go to start a new page, I would go File and New. I'm going to set my measuring system here to use pixels, and then I'm going to actually make this page larger than the actual viewable area. And I'll show you what I mean by that in just a moment. So I could make this page like 1100, or let's see, 1100 pixels wide, and I'll make it about 900 pixels tall, and for screen resolution for the web, 72 pixels per inch, and we're going to use the color mode of RGB color. I'll click OK. The next thing that I want to do is make sure that my rulers are showing. If not, the page or the image window would look like this. But under View, I can show my rulers. And also I want to make sure to show grids and guides. Using the grid, it can help us align things in space so the elements don't look like they're floating with no unity and nothing holding them together on the page. So if I go under View, I can show my grid. Now that I've shown the grid, maybe I think that the spacing between the grid lines is a little bit too much to work with. I can always change those settings under Photoshop Preferences, Guides, Grids. So under your Photoshop Preferences, you can change the settings. Right now I have a grid line set to show at every 100 pixels, and I have 5 subdivisions in between each. I could tone that down a notch and just have 2 subdivisions between each and hit OK, and it would look like this. So using the grid can help us align elements on the page. The next thing that I want to do is actually drag some guidelines from the ruler to show me what the viewable area is. The viewable area is the area that is going to be seen by the widest possible web audience. Think about when you're looking in a browser. I can just bring up a browser. There's a lot of things that kind of fall off the side of the edge. Some people have various types of bars at the bottom of the page. They might have this much type elements within their browser window. So really the viewable area is only this much. So a recommended I'm going to recommend to you the viewable area would be about 950 by 650. So I can drag down to 650 pixels a guideline. So I know everything above that guideline would be considered above the fold in my design within that viewable area. Now this is set to 1100 pixels, and if I subtract 150 pixels on either side, that would bring me to about 900 pixels wide. You probably would know that this is a very safe zone to design within. I tend to design within 1,000 pixels by 650. And so knowing that that space is the most prevalent viewing area, then I can begin to build my design. And it helps as you're building web elements to use the grid and the guidelines by dragging them from the ruler into space to see where things should be aligned. In practice, it would look something like this. If I show my grid, you can see that I've aligned elements along this edge here, and I can drag a guideline along which I display the images on this secondary page. I could drag another guideline where some of the content would fall. And I can also further drag guidelines to the top so I can make sure to align the top of my text with the top of that image. So this case here, I would want to move that image up just a tad. And those two seem to be lining up well. So you can see how by dragging guides from the ruler, it makes it easier for you to line elements on the page. You can also see that this element here, the logo element, fits neatly in this space within the grid. You can also see that I have aligned and have equal spacing in between the sub-navigation elements. Each page is going to have a consistent navigation system. In this case, it's a horizontal main navigation system, with the assumption that there might be the sub-navigation within each section. So within this food and wine section, you would have this sub-navigation of signature dishes. It's also a good idea to plan for visual breadcrumbs like this right here is called breadcrumb navigation, and it's actually something that can be programmed into the site, and it allows viewers to know where they are in this non-linear navigation system. They know where they are at all times by adding this breadcrumb navigation. So that's also another important component to plan for. So I'm hoping that this little demonstration helps you get started in planning your website design. And this concludes the introduction to planning good website design.